It's 9 o'clock, which means it's time for another video. And today I'm going to be doing a second in the series of What Can a Magician Learn From? So if you don't know what this series is, we did the first episode a couple of weeks ago on David Penn. The whole idea is I examine a magician and I look at everything that they do right, or in some cases things that they do wrong. And I kind of break down what we can learn from watching that magician. If you haven't seen the first week's episode, it was on David Penn, and it was very well received. And I had a ton of people saying to me, oh, can you do others? We'd like to see more in this series. This is such a good idea. And that's one thing that I'm trying to do on Magic TV. I'm trying to put new ideas out. The map test is relatively new. The whole creativity thing where I talk about tricks and teach them within the context of creativity. I'm trying to bring a whole bunch of new stuff to the channel right now. And this seems to be a real hit. Now, obviously, I'm only going to do these things if you guys are into it. So let me know in the comments down below who you'd like to see me do these on, and if you would like me to carry on doing them. I quite like this idea because genuinely, I think that the best way to learn is by looking at others and looking at their achievements, successes, and maybe even failures, and seeing how we can actually learn from that. With that in mind, today's sort of episode is going to be very different to what I did on David Penn, because I'm going to be looking at somebody who has had some massive highs and also some terrible lows, especially in the last couple of years. So let's start off looking at Peter Eggink. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about Peter Eggink. Now, this might seem a little bit weird. For some reason, I've got a reputation on this channel as being somebody who doesn't like Peter Eggink. And it is true. There are certain things that he's done in recent years that I really don't like. There's certain things in recent years that he's done that I think are really downright despicable, to be perfectly honest. And I have reviewed a lot of his products over the last year or so, and pretty much exclusively, all of them have been terrible. However, you have to remember that Peter's been around for a very long time. And for the majority of his career, he was revered in the Magic community. Everybody absolutely loved his work, and everyone loved the tricks that he created. He's consulted on huge shows for big name magicians, as well as releasing more magic to the Magic community than anybody could possibly imagine. And I mean that. I did a search on Penguin and Murphy's when I was kind of researching this topic. And I looked at all of the different tricks that he'd done. Man, some of them I hadn't even heard of. He's released so much magic over the years. Some of it very, very good. Some of it very well received. Some of it not so good. Now, I'm going to be taking the approach on this of looking at him as a creator, because I get so many people on this channel asking me about how to be a magic creator and what can I do to become a magic creator, and oh, I'm really innovative, I have wonderful ideas, how do I become wider known in the magic community so that people will buy my tricks, whatever it may be. Well, Peter's managed to achieve that and then some. So we're going to be looking at this from a creativity point of view and how to become successful in the magic industry as a magic creator, because there's definitely things that we can learn from Peter Eggink. So let's break them down. Okay, so number one, the first point I'd like to make is when you burst onto the scene, make sure that you're releasing magic with everybody and every production company that you can. One thing that I've seen Peter's done over the years, he's worked with pretty much most major magic producers, including Paul Harris, Murphy's, Penguin. He's pretty much at one point or another worked with all of them, as well as releasing his own magic. And that's something that you've probably seen me do. I release a lot of magic through a lot of different companies. And it's important to do that if you want to get your name out there, if you want people to know who you are. And the reason is every production company has its own audience, has its own fans. Now, to be clear, there is a crossover, absolutely. There's people who will know a Penguin product that will also know Murphy's product, and so on and so forth. But there are a lot of people out there that maybe they're a hobbyist magician and they're not really massively ingrained into it. And for example, they only ever buy from Penguin. They don't really go on the online forums. They don't really hang around with other magicians. They just buy anything that Penguin puts out. In that case, you put stuff out through somebody else, they're not going to be able to see you. It's like when I release magic through Alakazam. Alakazam are really interesting because they don't put their stuff out through Murphy's. They have like a fan base that's growing all of the time that are just like literally hanging off every word that Peter says, and for good reason, because Alakazam are absolutely amazing. When I put magic out through Alakazam, I reach an audience that I wouldn't normally reach going through somewhere like Murphy's. They also put their stuff up, Alakazam put their things out through a select small group of dealers as well. Have like a little mini dealer network away from Murphy's, and it really kind of helps become better known within that niche, and that's what Peter's done brilliantly. He's realised that the best way to get people to know who you are, and ultimately that's what it's all about as a creator, you need to get as many people as possible to know who you are. The best way to become known as a creator is to put magic out through absolutely everybody. You know, he's put magic out through this company, that company, that company. I think that's one of the reasons why he became known so quickly within this industry, because things were coming out through everybody. You know, when you're working with somebody like Paul Harris, for example, and you bring it out a Paul Harris Presents project, well, I mean, at that point, you kind of got to go, well, this is absolutely amazing. You know, your name is associated with one of the greatest creators on the planet, but then you have stuff going out through Penguin and Murphy's, and it means then when you bring material out yourself, because he has self-published a lot of tricks through his own production company, when he brings magic out himself, everyone's going to be listening and watching because they already know who he is because of what he's done through these other production companies. So there you go. The first thing we can learn is when you're a creator, don't just put tricks out through one company, but go through a lot of different companies. Okay, so number 2, on the subject of you know, working with various different production companies and having your name associated with Paul Harris. The second thing I can say is it's very important, especially early on in your career, to network with the right people. Well, you want to network with everybody, but definitely with the right people. You want everybody to know who you are. You want to be the name that everybody thinks about. And that's really important, because obviously, how are you going to become a really well-known creator? You're going to become a really well-known creator by everybody talking about you. Well, it doesn't happen as much these days, but in the early days, he would be going to conventions everywhere. You'd see his dealer stand at every convention. But not only that, he would make sure that he's networked and built relationships up with some of the biggest names, some of the movers and shakers within this industry. I can't tell you the amount of people I've spoken to, and Peter's name has come up in a very positive light, even after the last year of releases. I know just recently he was consulting on a project for a huge TV magician, along with a group of other consultants. Now that's huge, you know, to be associated with that. Shows what people think of him and shows the value that people place on his ideas and his concepts. So how did he get to that position? Well, he got to that position by A, releasing a series of great tricks, but 2, by making sure everybody knows who you are. You're never going to be the biggest and the best if you're the biggest secret in the industry you're working in. And that's something that my mentor Brad Burton told me. You know, you're never going to be huge if you're the world's biggest secret. You know, we talk about magicians. Oh, it's the best kept secret in magic. Nobody knows about this guy, but he just goes out and gets the job done every single time. Well, that's fantastic. But if you want to become known as a creator, you need people to spread the word about who you are and what you do. How do you spread the word? By really putting everything out there, have social proof, and let everybody know who you are. And one of the ways of doing that is having an army of people that will talk about who you are and what you do. Okay, number 3, this is a big one that I think he did, especially very early on, but to be honest, it's something that's carried on throughout his career, especially in this last year, which is create magic that every single magician looks at the ad copy or looks at the trailer or looks at the title and it sounds interesting. Okay, and that's vitally important. Create magic that everybody will find interesting. So there's plots in magic, there's certain tricks that come out, and I know this because I'm a magic reviewer. There's certain tricks that come out and you kind of look at the ad copy and you're like, oh, that sounds a bit dull. That sounds a bit boring. I'm sure we've all been there when we read the ad copy for a trick and it just sounds very uninspiring. You know, you could have the greatest version of the 21 card trick ever. You could have the version of the 21 card trick that's going to fool every magician in the world. But ultimately, your goal as a creator is to sell product. Because if you're not selling product, then people won't want to buy your product. How do you get producers to buy your ideas or your concepts? How do you get producers to partner with you? By showing them that you've got a track record that when you release a trick, it's going to be a commercial success, right? If you're bringing magic out and it's just always like, nah, doesn't sound great, you know, it's not sold very well, that's going to impact bringing anything else out in the future. So with that in mind, you look at Peter and you see the tricks he's brought out. They're all really interesting. As I said, I researched him for quite a while, for a few hours, and I was going through, partly amongst other things, I was going through like the tricks that he's released. And some of them that I'd never heard of sound amazing, and they were out of stock everywhere. And I was like, damn, I wish I'd got this. This sounds really good. This sounds really good. Like, it's not like he's just releasing another sandwich trick. And this has continued. You know, I've been the biggest critic of Peter Eggink for the last few years. Absolutely. But if you look at the tricks that he's brought out in the last few years, they sound amazing. It's why everyone's been raving about them. They sound amazing. I'm going to teach you how to do card through the window that you can do anytime, anywhere. I'm going to teach you how to do a visual ambitious card where you see it come to the top of the deck. I'm going to teach you how to, whatever it may be, right? There's all of the magic that's come out recently is the same as the magic that came out in the past. He seems to have an uncanny ability to really tap into what the magic community wants to actually get excited about. And I think as a creator, as somebody who creates, that's so important. Understanding that it's not just about the trick that you're creating, but it's also about getting other people to buy into that trick and getting them excited about buying them. Because if you don't do that, they're not going to buy it, and then it's going to be harder to bring product out in the future. Okay, next point. If you are going to have a dealer booth at a convention, if you're going to have a dealer booth at a convention, make sure that you've got one of the tricks that everybody is talking about. Now, I'm going to use Blackpool as an example here. I wasn't at Blackpool. Peter wasn't at Blackpool, the last Blackpool gone. The Blackpool before, it was a virtual Blackpool. But the year before, 2020, the last Blackpool before the convention, Peter Eggink brought out Voodoo Needle. And the buzz, that was the first Blackpool I'd gone back to in years. And the buzz, my Lord, the buzz. Everybody was just buzzing about this. Like, I was having people just grabbing me saying, have you gone and seen Peter Eggink's new trick? No. Have you gone and seen Peter Eggink's new trick? No. You got to go and check it out. And he was just there with a pad and this stupid little needle. And he was just doing the trick. And everybody was buying it. Everybody was buying it, and it helped that it was the right price point. It didn't cost very much. I think it was like £6 or £7 or something, and you got the little pins. It wasn't very expensive, but he was selling so many of those things. It was one of the tricks of the convention, and it got people over to his booth so that then they would buy other things, right? Then you look at the year before, or I wasn't there the year before. I think it was the year before. I wasn't there the year before, but you know what everybody was talking about? I was even having friends call me saying, you've got to see this. This is the best trick I've ever seen. It was his coin in can, where he was having a magician hold a can. He was taking a coin and they felt and heard it land in the can. That's the trick that everybody was talking about, or at least from an outsider looking in. And all of the buzz that was taking place about that convention, that was the one. I think he called it C2C, card in can or something like that. I'm not too sure. Coin in can, coin through can. I'm not sure. The point is, it was creating a massive buzz outside of the convention to somebody who wasn't really even in the magic community. So what would it do for people that were actually at the convention? And that's a really important point. You plan the tricks that you're releasing. Once you become a creator like Peter, where you're constantly creating and it's part of who you are, you have to constantly think about when you're releasing tricks, and you want to have a big trick for Blackpool that everyone's talking about. You want to be the stand that everyone's going up to. And that's something that Peter has done masterfully. Okay, so the next point, do not be afraid to embrace technology. You know, we talked about Peter bringing out Voodoo Needle at Blackpool, which was a very cheap item. The year before, that coin in can thing was electronic. And most recently, you know, the coin through glass, CTG, I think it was, which is terrible, but that's not the point. That's electronic. His card through window, which again is terrible, that's electronic. And he's not afraid to dabble in electronics. He's not afraid to take a project and use electronics. And you know what? It doesn't matter what. The magicians are fascinated with electronics. And I think the reason is it allows us to take it feels like it's going to be a lot easier because the electronics are going to do all the work for us, right? Oh, if it's all electronic, I don't need to do anything but press a button. And one thing that magicians are always looking for, they're always looking for that trick that's going to make them famous, that trick that's going to catapult them to superstardom, right? And they love toys. Magicians love toys. If you get a trick, it doesn't matter how good the trick is. If it's only got a piece of elastic thread and some wax, they're not going to be happy because it's like, oh, is that it? It's very uninspiring. But if they get something that they can play with, a little button that they can press, they absolutely love it. And it's understanding these points that makes Peter a great creator in terms of he understands that, you know, there's lots of different methods at his disposal. He's not going to be limited by just making sure he goes down one route. Right, okay, so everything I create has to be pure. There's going to be no sleight of, nothing like that. He'll do what he needs to do. And I think he's become as successful as he has because he's not afraid to use electronics. And some of the tricks that have done the best for him commercially and some of the tricks that he's very well known for are the ones that use electronics. Okay, so the next point is when you are a magic creator, don't be afraid to partner with others. Now, I'm not talking about production companies. You'll notice that some of the tricks that Peter comes out with aren't his own creation. He's either taken somebody else's creation and, I don't know his business practice, but I imagine bought the rights to it or done a profit share or something. But a lot of the tricks that he comes up with aren't his own. They're somebody else's that maybe he's worked on with them. So the perfect example is Voodoo Needle. Voodoo Needle came out as I say, about 2 or 3 years ago. Now, I know there's a bit of controversy about this, and I don't know enough about the controversy to be able to comment on it too much. Please feel free to link me down below. If it's dodgy, I wouldn't be surprised if Peter Eggink was involved in it. However, I do know that Voodoo Needle was the creation of a guy called my own son, I believe it is. And it was Peter that brought it to market. It was definitely Peter that was presenting it at Blackpool. I was led to believe it was Peter's trick, to be perfectly honest. I remember going over to his stand, him saying, let me show you something I've come up with, let me show you something I've created, and he was showing me this whole thing. I didn't know it was somebody else's until afterwards, when Penguin brought him out as a download, and then somebody else's name was attached to it. But that's not the first time that's happened. Most recently, he brought a method out, an electronic method, to make a phone vanish. It was basically a vibration device that made it sound like a phone is vibrating in a case when it's not. That's not his either. That's through somebody else whose name I can't remember, unfortunately. But that's not his. Or it's a joint release, I'm not too sure. But the point is, you do see him bringing tricks out that aren't just his. So as a creator, the most important thing is you constantly have ideas. You constantly are coming up with ideas, and not just ideas, but really good ideas. There's no point in bringing out terrible trick after terrible trick after terrible trick, because what's going to happen is ultimately that's going to affect your career. So you have to bring out the best possible tricks that you can. And there can be a lot of pressure sometimes on creating new magic. There can be in any sort of creative industry. It's why you see singers and bands, you know, they'll bring an album out, maybe they'll bring out a second album, then you won't see them for a while. It's because they're working on new material. It's why a lot of bands split up, or it's one of the reasons why a lot of bands split up, because there's the pressure of actually coming up with new songs and writing new songs. But it's the same with magic. You know, the thing with magic is if you're a magic creator, you're only as good as your last release. And if you bring something else out that's substandard, well, that's going to impact everything that you've done before. So you want to bring out good material, and one way to do that is to partner with other people, because if they've got a really cool idea and you can bring it to market and have your name associated with it, well, even better, right? Because then you're you're advancing your name off the back of their creativity, if that makes sense. And that's something that Peter's gone back to the well to over and over again and done many, many times. Okay, so the next few points are going to be slightly different. Up until this point, I've been very nice, and I've talked about all of the things that Peter has done well, and I've talked about all of the reasons that up until a couple of years ago, he was considered one of the greatest creators in the magic industry. However, we do have to look at the opposite side of the coin. And when you look at the opposite side of the coin, you have to realize that in the last couple of years, most of the tricks that Peter has brought out have been substandard at best, and at worst, an absolute travesty of shitness. Like, they are terrible. Now, you might just say, and I know there's going to be people sitting here going, oh, but Craig's biased and Craig hates Peter Eggink. I don't hate Peter Eggink at all. I hate some of his practices. I don't like some of the things he does. I don't like some of the ways that he presents his magic. I don't like some, in terms of, I think there's some of the trailers and ad copy are dishonest. There's lots of things that I don't like, but I was a big Peter Eggink fan for years. But as a magic reviewer, I have to take each trick as it comes. And unfortunately, a lot of the tricks aren't very good. And if you don't believe me, go check out the various reviews on various different platforms where it's 1 star, 1 star, 1 star. It's not just me saying this. I wanted to start this video by talking about and celebrating everything that Peter's done right, because you can't take that away from him. He is an exceptional creator. He's an exceptional consultant. He's done so well in his lifetime, but the last year and a half has been a bit of a struggle. And so the next few points to wrap this whole video up are going to be what we can learn from Peter in the last year and a half or so when he hasn't done things as well. And the first thing that I want to talk about is listening to your customers and treating them with respect. It's very, very important that you listen to your customers and you treat them with respect, and you listen to what they say. You get their feedback and you take it on board, right? It's very, 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 very important. And that's something that Peter hasn't done, because people have moaned about various different things that Peter's done over the last year in terms of the tricks that he's released. People have moaned about various different aspects, about the dishonesty on the trailers, or the ambiguity in the ad copy, or particular aspects of the tricks that he's released. And it's almost like he hasn't listened, or he hasn't paid any attention to that, and he's just gone ahead and just carried on anyway. You don't want to do that. You really don't want to do that. You want to listen to your customers. And, you want to treat them with some respect as well. I'm not getting into it right now, but I have spoke on this channel before about how disgusted and appalled I was. And to be honest, this was the breaking point. This was the absolute breaking point when it came for me and Peter Eggink. Up until this point, I was just disappointed that Peter hadn't brought out some great tricks recently. However, when I saw how he treated Tyler Lunsford, that is when I just became completely disgusted. I'm not going into it too much now. Suffice to say, Tyler reviewed one of Peter's tricks, and rather than Peter taking the review on board, he absolutely belittled this kid in front of everybody, and just really scummy behavior, really scummy behavior. And I did a rant on this, and I'm not going into it now. He did a rant on it, and sorry, I did a rant on it, but you can't do that, man. Now, I'm a reviewer, right? So I review stuff. Some stuff gets a good review, some stuff gets a bad review, and I generally get good reviews, which is great. I've had some bad reviews, and when I do, generally I take them on board. The time that I make an exception to that is when it feels personal. When it feels personal, so it goes beyond just, oh, I didn't like this trick before because, and it becomes insulting in various different ways. And that when a reviewer does that, I don't think that's acceptable really in any way, shape or form. But I've had bad reviews in the past, and I've taken it on board. Hell, the reason I started creating magic again is because all those years ago I looked at the bad reviews and I listened to them, and I was like, right, okay, I think I understand where we're coming from here. Let me see if I can take a different approach. But yeah, you want to I suppose the point I'm trying to make here is it's just really, really important to listen to your customers. The definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And that's what's happening right now. Terrible trick after terrible trick after terrible trick. It's almost like, right, I'll give you an example. As a wrestling fan, I'll give you an example. Hulk Hogan was one of the greatest wrestlers of all time. One of the greatest wrestlers of all time. In the 1980s, he was just huge. He was huge for so many years. And, you know, he had this whole shtick where he came out to Real American. I am a real American. He was a, you know, like a cartoon version of Captain America. His catchphrase was eat your vitamins and, you know, say your prayers and all this sort of stuff. He was the ultimate good guy. And then you saw that over the course of a period of time, that his popularity started to wane. His popularity started to just like basically he was less popular, and that's because everybody was kind of done with it. The world was becoming more edgy. They were looking for more anti-heroes as opposed to Hulk Hogan, who was a hero, and really he became irrelevant. And he wouldn't listen to anybody. He wouldn't listen to the critics. He wouldn't listen to people that were saying, man, you're irrelevant. He would just continue. And the only thing that kind of brought him right back up to the top was when he turned heel, that became a bad guy, on WCW, on Nitro, and joined the NWO. And at that point, he completely revitalized his career. He listened to what the fans were saying. He listened to what the promoters were saying. He listened to what the wrestling audience was saying. And he went, right, okay, I'm going to turn things on my head. And that's exactly what he did. And the very second he did that, he became the hottest thing in wrestling once again. Well, it's the same with magic. Hulk Hogan is Peter Eggink. He has been doing the same thing over and over again because it works. So if it works, why fix it, right? So the strategy of bringing tricks out that are kind of interesting sounding. You look at his trailers, he's pretty much always got the same trailer, walking around in a field, that sort of thing. It's not working as much anymore. It's really not. He needs to change it up, and that's something he's not doing. It's why I'm revitalizing Magic TV. It's why I'm painting and putting together a brand new studio with new audio and visual equipment. It's why the whole look of this channel in the next month's going to change. It's why I'm doing new features like this, because I'm constantly trying to change it up. I listen to what people say, and I try to change the channel up, and it's exactly the same with Peter. Okay, so the next point is be honest and address issues. Have a little humility. That's really, really important. So, you know, be honest and address the issues is the big one. You know, people have talked about various different problems they've got with his products recently. I know that there's been tons of people that have been unhappy with their card through Windows not working. I know that there's been tons of people that look at iCandy. He brought out iCandy. The guys at Saturn were really unhappy about iCandy because they perceived it to be a direct rip-off of their trick. They brought a trick out years ago and they looked at iCandy and they were like, this is basically the exact same thing. But it's not just that. There's tons of stuff. Controversy kind of follows Peter around from time to time and he just completely ignores it. He's not really present within the magic community, which is one of the big issues. He's not present within the magic community, so he can't have humility because outside of a trailer and an ad copy and maybe the odd interview here and there, people don't get to see him, so they don't get to know him. Like, here's Peter's MO. He'll bring out a new trick. It will have a trailer. It will come out to the magic community. He might pop up in a couple of threads promoting that particular trick, and then he will disappear. And then when people have issues about the trick, he doesn't appear on the thread to talk about those issues. He doesn't talk about any of that. You just never see him again. And he will never address any problems that people have with any of his tricks. I think you need to become more present. I think that the magic creators that people really respect are the ones that make an effort to build relationships with their fan base. Look at somebody like Greg Wilson, who you see at almost every single convention. He might not do as much online, but you see him at every convention. Then you see people like Danny Goldsmith, who's getting a huge name for himself, and he is everywhere, all over the internet. And one of the things that people say is he's such a nice guy. Then you look at Justin Miller, who's done exactly the same thing. He's so active on social media and he tries to engage with his fans. Now, you might disagree or agree with any of these names, and that's fine, but the point is they're making an effort to be there. And I think that's really important. I mean, I've done a couple of lectures recently. I've done a run. I don't do many lectures, but I've done a run of 3 lectures. First of all at Surrey, then at the Session, and then at Sussex, the 3 S's. And all of them, I had people coming up to me and saying, I bought your trick because I got to know you on Magic TV and I really like you. It wasn't so much about the trick. It was about knowing me. It was because I'm putting myself out there. And I think that's really important. It's something that he doesn't do. So as a magic creator, put yourself out there. Be on Instagram, be on YouTube, be on Facebook. If you're trying to sell tricks to people, don't just pop up out of nowhere every 3 months, sell a trick and then bugger off. Be the person that's there all of the time, or at least as much as possible, to build relationships up with the people that are ultimately going to be buying your tricks. Okay, so the next one is promote yourself as a performer more. And what I mean by that is, this is an important one for me. I don't know if it's important for everyone else out there, but it's important to me. And I know it's important to a lot of people I've spoken to, but I'd love to know your opinion. So when someone brings out a trick, I like to know what their background is as a performer, because I like to know how well this trick has been worked in. I want to know if it's got all of the bugs out of it. I want to know that it's been worked in the real world and it's not just an idea that's been put to market. They've had an idea, they've gone out and they've shot a trailer quickly and then they've put it out. I want to know that that trick has actually been worked in. It's very, very important. It's why every single trick that you see that I've bought out has had a live performance in the trailer and multiple live performances in the product. I have insisted on that with every production company. The one thing that I insist on is that we have multiple live performances. And the reason I want that is I want people to realize that if my name's attached to anything, it's going to have been worked in. Now, every trick is not going to suit every individual, and I know that there's going to be magic that I bring out, that other people bring out, that might not be for you, and that's absolutely fine. But you can trust that I've actually worked it in. Even my first trick back in the community, which was Gossip, which was brought out in the middle of lockdown, and we couldn't perform for anybody, and it's not really a Zoom trick. I actually went and managed to get into a field. If you look at the trailer, I got into a field and I did it to 2 people, very socially distanced. And that's the important thing. I always try to make sure that I'm putting products out there that have a live performance, and people can research me and they can see that I have a background as a performer. I'm out gigging all the time. I'm filming this on Sunday morning. I'm about to leave to do a gig. I did 2 gigs yesterday. I did 2 gigs the day before. I did 2 gigs the day before. I've got a gig on Tuesday. I've got a gig on Wednesday, gig on Friday, 2 gigs the following Saturday. I have a lot of opportunities to work this stuff in. I am a real full-time working performer. The reason I bring this up is because honestly, I can never see any footage of Peter performing ever. I've found a website. I did some research. I wanted to find stuff. So I found a website and I did Google Translate on the stuff, and there's a website for him as a performer. Not really that much on there, but there's not hardly anything, and I don't understand why. Like, you look at his latest trailer for his latest trick, which I haven't seen yet, so I'm not going to comment on the quality of it, but Ring Hole, it's him, it's his classic trailer. It's him walking through a field doing a trick to camera. That's it. He's just doing a trick to camera. He's not performing it to live audiences. He's not going out there and performing it to real people. I think that, at least for me, I trust a creator more when I can see that that creator is out there performing and are out there doing their thing. Now, you're then going to turn around to me and say, but what about Lloyd Barnes? Lloyd Barnes has never done a gig in his life. No, he hasn't. But if you look at any Lloyd Barnes tricks, it's not him doing the performing on there. It's not even him doing the tutorial a lot of the time. Look at Cognito. That was hosted by Javier, and he did all of the performing on there. Look at Lux, that was Javier as well. His new one, which is coming out in a week's time, called Pro Caps, I'm the guy that's on there doing it. Lloyd knows lots of really good performers and calls on them. Now, it doesn't mean he can't do it. He's actually a great performer, but he doesn't perform. So instead, he gets other people to do that aspect of the trailer, which is fine. I think that's absolutely fine. But what you need to do, and it is vitally important, you need to, if you are a performer, you need to promote it. It's so weird that I can't find any footage of him anywhere performing at a gig. Other than magic trailers, there's nothing. And I'd love to see some. I would absolutely love to see them. But I just see magic trailers. And I think that as a creator, you should promote your performances. You know, you see what I do on my 5x5s. I show videos of me performing at gigs and I break them down. Love me or hate me, you know that I'm out there gigging, right? It's why we put an hour of live performances on the quantum deck tutorial, because I wanted people to see that this is a trick that works in the real world at every single possible type of event. So yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, what we can learn from Peter Eggink not doing this is it's really important to do this. It's really important to put yourself out there as a performer, or make it clear that you've got other people that are doing that aspect for you. Okay, and the final point, the 10th point, is stop releasing shit tricks and know when to take a break. Honestly, one step backwards will bring you 5 steps forward. Something's not been working for the last year or so with Peter Eggink. The tricks that he's been bringing out are very, very substandard. And now, when a trick comes out, rather than being a huge buzz about it, I get tagged. Whenever there's a trailer, I get tagged about 100 times on various different platforms going, "Oh, Craig, can you review this? Can't wait to review this. Oh, is this going to be another shit show? Oh, this is going to be another terrible product. Oh, God, here we go, Peter again." It's got to a point now where it's become almost a joke. When Peter starts bringing tricks out and a new trailer hits, go check out the Murphy socials. On every platform, people start moaning about the trick and wondering if it's going to be any good. That's not what you should have. You shouldn't have that as a creator. When a creator brings a trick out, the first question in people's heads is, I wonder if this is going to be crap. Oh, I hope Craig Petty is going to review this trick. Shouldn't be the first thing. The first thing should be, oh, amazing. I'm so excited about this. This trailer looks great. I'm going to do it. I'm absolutely going to pull the trigger on this and I'm going to go and buy this trick. You don't get that anymore with a Peter Eggink trick, because he has lost the faith of a lot of his loyal customers within the magic community, because with one product, or maybe more than one product, they have been burned. They have given him chance after chance after chance. And unfortunately, it's just been ignored. So the best thing to do is to regroup, take a step back, and then approach it again. And sometimes it's the worst thing to do, but sometimes it's the best thing to do. So look at me. You know, I bought out many products back in the day. Some of them were great, some of them weren't so great. I don't think I was as good a creator back then as I am now. Some of them were great, some of them not so great. I bought out Red. I'm not going to get into that, but everybody knows what happened there. And that's kind of the point that the community turned against me. And then the next trick I bought out, or the next project I bought out, which was the last project I bought out, was Parlor, which was a double DVD set. The first DVD was a full 1 hour live performance, and the second DVD was me breaking down everything that I did. Now, I stand by that material. I still perform that material all the time. My card in the box routine is on there. My monster coin routine's on there. Look at the reviews. Look at the threads on the Magic Cafe. It got ripped apart. And the reason it got ripped apart is because, really, people didn't like me at that point. It wasn't really so much about the material. If you read the reviews, it wasn't so much about the material, although I have become a better performer since then, I believe. It was about the fact that I was just not well received in the magic community, because at that point, the community had had enough of my crap. So I took the difficult decision to take a step back from the community. And it was a difficult decision. It wasn't a decision I made lightly. It wasn't an easy decision to make, but it was a decision that I made. And looking back in hindsight, and oh my God, I wish we could bottle hindsight, but looking back, it was the best decision I ever made, because it allowed me to focus on being a performer. I didn't have to sit there learning new tricks to go and do a review show. I didn't have to worry about anything. I could just be a performer. It's when I built up my businesses to the point that now when I create not from sort of financial reasons, but from the point of view of wanting to give back to the community, because I don't need that aspect. It allowed me to put that in place by setting up various different companies, but it allowed me to perform in every single environment. It allowed me to perform on stages all over the world. It allowed me to perform nightly in various different gigs. It made me a better performer. It allowed me to take a step back, and it allowed the community to have a break from me, which is what they needed at that point because of all of the crap that I'd pulled. And so that when I came back almost a decade later, it was a totally different situation. And yes, I had to win people over, and I had to show that I was kind of approaching things in a different way. But taking that step back was the best thing I ever did. And I would do it again. If I felt it was necessary, I would do it again. And if Peter's listening to this, and I really don't think he is, but if he is listening to this, or if you're a friend of Peter Eggink and you're watching this, please just send him this one little section. He needs to take a step back. He has been releasing terrible trick after terrible trick after terrible trick for so long now. It is anticipated, it is expected that the next trick won't be very good, which means he has to work 1,000 times harder to be able to break through and get the industry to trust him, because they're expecting negativity. They're expecting it to be terrible. So case in point, the latest Matrix film, Matrix 4, Matrix 2 and 3 were terrible. Or at least, subjective. Obviously, everything like this is subjective. But Matrix 2 and 3, generally, as a rule, people didn't like. So many, many years later, they bring out a Matrix 4. And it was very difficult to, fans were like, oh my God, the sequel that nobody wants, blah, 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 blah. And I didn't go to the cinema to watch it. I was like, I can't be bothered to watch this. I've just watched it recently, and I really liked it. I really liked it. I thought it was really good. I liked the way they did it. I was a big fan, but it was a commercial flop. It wasn't very successful at all because they were fighting against all of that negativity from the second and the third film. It's the same with you, Peter. You need to take a step back, regroup. Don't just bring out every little brain fart idea that you get. Instead, take a step back, regroup. Think of an absolutely awesome idea. Think of something that's going to set the world on fire, and then bring that out. And when you bring it out, be everywhere. Speak to your fans, speak to your customer base. Be there, be present. Let them know who you are. Do some videos, do some Q&As, do something. Let people know that you want their money for more reasons than just wanting their money. Prove to them that you want to give back to this community. Prove to them that you want to bring a trick out that people can be proud to own. Don't just bring out a new trick and a new trick and a new trick, bang a trailer out of you walking through a field or something, and then just pocket the money and bugger off and never be seen again. Actually take time to speak to your audience. Take time to prove to them that you're not where we all as a community think you are right now. Seriously take a step back and look at Ringhole. And as I say, I haven't seen it yet, but I will. But take a step back and look at Ringhole. It's been out for a couple of days now on pre-order. Have a look at the comments. Why are people tagging me in and asking me to review your product? Why are people going, oh my God, here we go again? On multiple different videos on YouTube, on multiple different threads. Why is that happening? Why? Why am I getting text messages from people who are huge in the industry asking me to review this? You have become a bit of a joke. And that's not fair, and that's not right, because Peter, you have been for many years an incredibly talented creator. Somewhere along the way, you lost your way. But it's very easy for you to get it back because you've got all the natural talent in the world. All you need to do is remember why you got into magic in the first place. So there you go, guys. That's another video in the bag. Let me know what you think of this one. A little bit different to the David Penn one, but I'd love to know your thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. You want to see more videos like this, you know what you got to do. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and I'm going to be back again tomorrow with another video. So once again, thanks very much for watching. go join the NETRIX, www.thenetrix.com. Support the channel, share the video, do all that fun stuff, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks very much for watching. My name's Craig from Magic TV.